Hey everyone, I'll be walking you through a project I have been working on. It's the OpenMRS Performance Testing and Enhancement Framework. If you're working on OpenMRS or contributing to it in any way, this should help you understand how we can now test performance in a much more reliable and automated way. So here's the deal. We have built a performance testing setup using Gatling, a load testing tool that helps us simulate real users doing real stuff in OpenMRS system. Basically, we can now mimic hundreds or even thousands of users hitting different parts of the OpenMRS and see what breaks or is slow or that needs fix. It's fully customizable and integrated in a way that it can catch performance issues early before they make it into production. Getting this up and running is actually pretty straightforward. First, you'll need OpenMRS running on port 80. That can be done using the Docker command here. You would also need JDK greater than 15 to be installed within your system, and Apache Maven too. Once that's in place, install the dependencies by running the command maven install. Then spin up the OpenMRS using the Docker compose. This Docker setup also loads in some demo patients, so you have a data set to work with. To run the full performance test, use this specific command. And if you just want to do a quick local run while developing, you can run this following command, as it has more variables to be modified that gives you much more options to run it based on what you want. After that, Gatling automatically generates a nice HTML report with all the stats. So we have got few presets depending on what kind of test you're doing. A standard test. This is our full 30-minute simulation, gradually increasing the load. Commit and pull requests. These are short and sweet. They run for about 1 minute just to check that all the tests are working fine and none of the core endpoints are failing. Dev. Dev is one for developers, a customizable option to set locally with shorter runs and fewer users. Each preset simulates traffic ramping up gradually, like users logging in and interacting over time to mimic real usage. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. To make things feel more real life, we introduce personas, each representing a typical type of user in a healthcare setting. Think of a doctor, a clerk, or a lab technician. Each of them have their own work, priorities, and patterns of interaction with OpenMRS. For example, a doctor might log in, search for patient, enter diagnosis, and review lab results. A clerk might be more focused on patient registration and scheduling appointments. We can control what proportion of users are for each persona. For example, the new clerk persona 0.75 basically tells that 75% of the users in simulation will behave like clerks. You can even build your own persona if you're testing new modules, say pharmacists, billing staff, and emergency triage. Inside each persona, we define scenarios, which are like tasks or workflows they perform during the simulation, like logging in, searching for a patient, and updating their chart. Here's how one scenario would look like. So this scenario simulates a clerk logging in, going to the registration page, registering a patient, and opening the patient chart. So the important points to remember is that how often this scenario would run depends on two factors: the persona weight, that is how many clerks are there in the system, and second is the scenario weight, which is shown here, that tells how frequently they do this specific task. This gives us a flexible way to mimic what's happening in a real clinic. To avoid repeating code across scenarios, we use registries, reusable building blocks that handle things like login, navigation, and API calls. You can define all your flows here and reuse them across multiple personas and scenarios, keeps the code base clean and makes the maintenance easier. Now let's talk about the report. You can open the report by clicking the specific link here. And this is which is honestly one of the coolest part of the whole set. After you run your test, the Gatling generates this detailed HTML report that gives you a visual overview of the system performance. You can get charts and metrics like response time percentiles being 50th, 75th, 95th, and 99th percentile. Super useful to see what normal looks like versus edge cases. Requests per second and how they are ramped up over time can also be viewed. Number of active users and failed versus successful requests are one of the many things that can be viewed here. Performance breakdown by endpoint are also provided in the below charts, which depicts a lot of information which is helpful and also shows the bottlenecks. At the end of the day, this is more than just graphs and numbers. We are making sure that doctors, nurses, and admins using the OpenMRS in real clinics and hospitals do not experience delays or crashes, especially when things get busy. Catching the issue earlier means fewer bugs, smoother releases, and better experience for people who depend on the system. So yeah, that's the new OpenMRS performance testing framework in a nutshell. Right. Thank you for watching.